The secret world of Ottawa and the RCMP, and Mark and Donna are going to be tackling that one right now. Guys, this sounds pretty interesting.
You know, it's very interesting when you consider the history of the RCMP. 1874 it was formed, and since then the RCMP is involved into a hugely complex force with almost 16,000 officers and nearly 10,000 civilian employees. They've got an annual budget of $4 billion, Donna.
Known worldwide for always getting their man, there is no police service in the world like it. No institution in Canada has enjoyed more trust, admiration, and respect than the Mounties. Their musical ride is a Canadian institution, but the public record shows the RCMP's collective reputation may be undeserved. For more than 35 years, the force has found itself mired in a seemingly endless list of public controversies and scandals. Well, now an investigative journalist has shed new light on an institution that, in fact, is in desperate need of a major overhaul.
Joining us now in studio is Paul Palango, the author of Dispersing the Fog. Now, Paul, you contend that the RCMP has developed an unhealthy relationship with their political masters in Ottawa. How did that begin, and how has it manifested itself?
Well, I think in 1984, after the Macdonald Commission, the commissioner of the RCMP was made a deputy minister, which means he's appointed by and serves at the pleasure of the Prime Minister of Canada. This is an unhealthy relationship in any democracy. This is the way things work in a banana republic. And if you look at the last 30 years in Canada, the RCMP has been in desperate straits, has stumbled from one controversy to another, and largely because of this political connection, this sort of unholy political connection.
I want to talk to you about Maher Arar, because you suggest something in this book which is shocking. And I'm going to allow you to explain what you think is the truth behind how he ended up getting millions and millions of dollars from the Canadian government.
Well, Donna, when I started out this book, it was with the point of view that the RCMP is a dysfunctional force with a sick culture, and I had evidence to prove that. And as I was, planning the book, I had one chapter devoted to Arar and how he was a victim of this. But as I studied the case, it became clear to me there was something wrong, that the bounties on the street who were investigating Arar at the beginning hadn't done anything wrong, in my opinion. And then I started to look and see other sort of anomalies that I didn't really know anything about Arar. I couldn't put together a profile of this man. He never really talked to the media. He's the only person in Canada who ever sued the government and received an award without ever having to testify. He never talked to the police. He never testified under oath. He never really submitted to a medical examination. So I thought this was all very curious, and then I stumbled onto something really unusual in the 12,000 pages of the O'Connor Commission report, which was supposed to be the definitive work on this matter. There was a typo, and the typo was the name of a company that Arar had purportedly worked for.
And continue, and there were some links to that company.
Well,
very interesting links to that company.
We don't want you to give the book away, Paul, but come on.
Well, I got behind the typo, and I hired a private investigator eventually because I couldn't find this company cited in the O'Connor Commission report anywhere in the world. So I hired a private investigator. We found a company with a similar name, defunct in Montreal, and as I went through that company, I found that it had been set up in a nominee's name by Arar and his brother-in-law, Morad Mazig. And then a further investigation of where they were living at the time, I found that the owner was actually a British-Italian arms dealer, and his name was Pietro Rigoli. And the interesting thing about Mr. Rigoli is that in 1999, he was captured in the U.S., lured across the border in a sting, and he was charged and convicted for arms dealing. He was shipping aircraft parts for the United States through Canada illegally to Iran. That's
pretty impressive information. Now, from there, you again concluded something about links to the FBI.
I was beginning to suspect that Arar was not an innocent victim, and that his past was covered up for a reason, because he was like a character out of a Jean le Carré novel. And as I looked at this character, I saw links to the FBI, that they were everywhere. They were illegally investigating in Ottawa during that time. They were suggesting to the RCMP in Ottawa that things they were going to do with Arar. And the final thing was that, after the Rigoli arrest of the arms dealer, In June 2000, I checked the court records in Montreal, and the search warrants and the information for the search warrants into the Rigoli case were checked out in June 2000 and went missing. So that suggested to me that there was some forethought in what was going on in the Arar case, that any links to him and any possible links to him were being erased throughout the records.
And what do you think actually happened?
I can infer from the facts and the multitude of circumstances, and there's a multitude of circumstantial evidence and a lot of facts, that Arar is not an innocent guy. So you have to say, what was he? Was he a Syrian agent who was working as a double agent? Was he a CSIS agent? Was he an FBI or CIA agent? I think his relationships to the FBI his proximity to the FBI seems really incongruous if he's an innocent guy. And the fact that he worked for the MathWorks from 1991 to 2001 in the States was curious, because the MathWorks, the police at the time thought the MathWorks was an innocuous company that produced programs for schools. But in fact, the MathWorks is a CIA Defense Department contractor that does high-speed imaging and high-speed sorting programs for computers. So it seemed unlikely that in the event of the Rigoli investigation, which took place on both sides of the border, and which surely would have caught up Arar, that he went to work for a CIA Defense Department contractor immediately after.
Paul, in your opinion, is the RCMP an effective police force?
It's absolutely dysfunctional. It's a threat to the rule of law in Canada, the way it's constructed. It should not be doing contract policing in the provinces outside of Ontario and Quebec. Why should the people of Ontario be paying $100 million a year to subsidize policing in the lower mainland of Vancouver, which is an urban area? It's one of the richest areas in Canada, but we've constructed this artificial paradigm for policing in Canada so that the RCMP can be spread thinly from coast to coast, doing a rather poor job while they're there.
We've only got about 10 seconds, but very quickly, has anybody contacted you? Have you been threatened to be sued or anything like that because of the suggestions made in this book?
No, the book's been out for selling for 2 weeks, and as of today, I think it was number 1 or 2 on Amazon.ca.
Nice. Great Christmas gift, we like to say at this time of the year. The book's called Dispersing the Fog. Paul Palango is the author. Paul, pleasure seeing you again, and good luck with the book, boy. It sure is an interesting read.
Thanks, Eb.
Okay.